Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike here. The DRF race of the day for Saturday, May the 1st. It's the first Saturday in May. Of course, it's the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby. $3 million is the purse. 3-year-olds going the classic distance of 1.25 miles. Before we get to the analysis, head on over to DRF.com for your one-stop Derby shop. Derby packages include past performances for the entire Churchill card, betting strategies, clocker reports, and lots more at DRF.com. Let's meet the 23-year-olds contesting the first jewel of racing's Triple Crown, and you can download free Formulator past performances for the Kentucky Derby on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Access them, handicap along with us. Essential quality, undefeated, 2-year-old champion of 2020. Now he's going to have to prove himself against a full field. He's the 2-1 morning line favorite, and he's not even the fastest horse on the way in.
Yeah, I mean, he deserves to be the favorite, no doubt. He's undefeated, multiple Grade 1 winner on the way in. He doesn't have any kind of an edge at all as far as speed figures go, Dan. But he is the class of the race. I'm not surprised that he's the morning line favorite. He's a little short at 2-1, though.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for the Derby. And I guess you could just throw this out the window if the Derby unfolds as it has in years past, with a lot of traffic going into the first turn. But I agree with Timeform US. If everyone breaks clean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Rock Your World dominated them on the front end in the Santa Anita Derby. He's going.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them just try to put this horse on the lead again. It worked very well for them last time. I'm sure they'll try it again. No real blazers in the race, Dan, but I think just a bunch of horses who want to race forward in their races, and oftentimes that leads to contested paces.
One of the 7 horses listed as a deep closer, according to Timeform US, drew the rail. That's the number 1, Known Agenda, the winner of the Florida Derby. Let's watch the Florida Derby. Soup and Sandwich is also in this race. Soup and Sandwich is the gray horse in between. He ran on the lead in here. Known Agenda from tracking range, gets to the outside, gets by a Game Soup and Sandwich you see on his left lead. Perhaps most notable about this race was that the odds-on favorite Greatest Honor didn't fire and was taken out of Derby consideration afterwards, but maybe Known Agenda, a horse that's always had potential, is finally figuring it out, and I think blinkers have really made a difference.
Yeah, he's certainly been way more focused in his last 2 starts with blinkers on, Dan. They still list him as a deep closer, but that has not been the case in his last 2 starts. The 2 wins. He was never that far away from the pace, rode the inside in that Florida Derby in a really nice trip. He's drawn to the rail here. And just going back and watching that last race, you don't really worry about him getting an inside trip. He was fine, very comfortable traveling in behind horses. And once he came clear at the stretch, he won that race very easily. He has to improve again to beat this field. I won't be surprised if he does it.
Up next is the number 2, Like the King. This is a very consistent son of Belmont Stakes winner Palace Malice. He won the Jeff Ruby Stakes over a synthetic track last time out, but from everything I've heard, he is training lights out on the dirt. Does he have to improve? Yes. Does he have some ability? Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. He does have some ability. You have to be very concerned about his only 2 dirt starts to date there. They've run him on this surface twice. He didn't run well either time. He's clearly a better horse now than he was then. So we'll see what happens. He's going to be a very big price in here. Boy, he was hard for me to get behind big price or not, because I just don't know how he handles the main track.
A horse that's had an abbreviated campaign is up next. The number 3, Brooklyn Strong, who showed a lot of talent last year. I liked how he won the Grade 2 Remsen, stretching out to 2 turns for the first time, albeit on a sloppy track, but he ran a 94 Beyer speed figure as a 2-year-old. That's running. He missed time after that race, and they ran him in the Wood Memorial off the layoff. He was down inside, chasing a fast pace. I think it's a little bit better than it looks on paper, Mike. Brooklyn Strong, though, second off a long layoff. This is a tough spot.
It really is, but I sort of agree with you, Dan. I mean, for a horse who's going to be just a really big price in this race, his Wood Memorial, his only start this year, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but he was down inside, held up for a brief second in the stretch, and then just sort of trudging on to the finish. And there, he didn't run great, but it wasn't bad. His Remsen was actually a really good performance. I know that it was a sloppy track. You have to worry about that. Known Agenda was far behind this horse at the finish of that race.
Keep Me in Mind, the number 4, ran second to Essential Quality in both the Breeders' Futurity and the breeder and third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, pardon me, and he got a very fast pace in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. A similar situation could be coming at Churchill Downs on Saturday. We know he likes the track. He won his maiden in a week edition of the Kentucky Jockey Club. A concern is he just hasn't fired in his 2 starts this year. They're taking the blinkers off. He's going to be running on late. The faster the pace, the better for him.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is the big concern, though, that his first 2 starts so far as a 3-year-old just have not been good. He really hasn't made an impact in either of those races. And when you go back to the best race he's run, I know that he won that grade 2 over this track, but the best race he's run is the Breeders' Cup. And he just had a wicked pace to run at in that spot to finish third. I think the pace will be fast here, too. I don't know if it's going to be that fast.
The number 5 is Sainthood for the great Todd Pletcher. This will only be his 4th lifetime start. We saw him finish second in the Jeff Ruby Stakes at Turfway behind Like the King. I thought he ran pretty well in that race, going 1 mile and 1/8 for the first time. Let's go back to his career debut at Gulfstream on dirt, going 3/4 of a mile. He ran well at this race, a distance that's probably a little bit short for him. He came back to win in gate-to-wire fashion at the fairgrounds. I wonder if it's too much too soon. Only his 4th lifetime start, and he has a lot to come on a buyer's standpoint. 84 is his highest coming in.
Yeah, 84 is his top, and that's on a totally different surface, Dan. He did have a little bit of an excuse last time when Like the King sort of jammed him over behind horses in the stretch and got the jump on him. This horse did re-rally to finish a close second. He ran fine in that race, but it wasn't enough to make me want to bet him back in the Derby.
Coming from the fairgrounds is the number 6, Obesos, who finished 3rd in the Louisiana Derby last time out. That was a race where the pace mostly held together. Hot Rod Charlie, Midnight Bourbon, 1-2 throughout. Obesos was the best closer. Maybe you could give him an extra point or two. And he ran to 96 buyer in that race, which puts him right in the mix from a speed figure standpoint. He's going to be a big price, and he should get some pace to run at. An interesting long shot. Something tells me some of the wise guys are on him.
Yeah, I wonder. It seems like there was a little bit of buzz around him leading up to the race. I still feel like he has to be a big price in here, Dan. We'll see how that all plays out. All in all, there's not really that much to knock about him. I guess save the fact that he's only won twice, and both of those wins have come sprinting. He still hasn't won a race beyond 6 furlongs in his life, but he did run really well last time. I mean, every race so far for him has been a step forward, and he ran well last time. He was the only one making up ground.
One of the keys to this race is the number 7, Mandaloon. Will the real Mandaloon show up? Who is the real Mandaloon? Because if the real Mandaloon is the one that won the Risen Star 2 starts back with that big speed figure, he is a major threat in this race because he has the tactical speed to adapt to any kind of pace scenario. If the real Mandaloon's the one that showed up in the Louisiana Derby, he's in trouble because let's just say he underperformed that day.
Yeah, he fairly bombed the last time we saw him. That's a big concern for your final prep race leading into the Kentucky Derby. I don't know what his excuse was last time, Dan, but he was bad. Certainly his Risen Star was a good performance. It came back pretty fast. He beat a couple of the horses that he's going to be facing again on Saturday. It's just not enough for me to get behind this horse, Dan. 2 of his last 3 starts, the 2 of his 3 starts since they stretched him out, I don't like those performances at all.
Bob Baffert-trained Derby runners are rarely considered underrated coming into the race. I think Medina Spirit is still a little bit underrated. He was lost in the shadow of his talented stablemate Life is Good before that one went onto the sidelines. And now he might be lost in the shadow of Rock Your World. He was lost in his shadow in the Santenay Derby when he was second best. But this is a talented horse that consistently runs fast races, and he can get a good trip close to the pace. If they don't go fast early, I expect this horse to be in prime contention turning for home.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little worried about how far he really wants to go, Dan, but I can't knock any of his performances since they've stretched this horse out in distance. I know he's only 1 for 4 in his 2-turn graded stakes races, but I think he's run well in every single one of those starts. And when he beat Hot Rod Charlie and the Robert B. Lewis, he ran great that day. He was hooked up on a fast pace the entire way. Everybody took a shot at him in the stretch, and he never let anybody get by. I think this horse is underrated.
Perfect segue to our next horse, the number 9, Hot Rod Charlie, behind Medina Spirit and the Lewis. He came right back to win the Louisiana Derby, and he popped a career best 99 buyer speed figure when beating 3 of these common rivals. Now, again, maybe he had the best of it from a race flow standpoint. There wasn't a lot of closing going on, but that was a breakthrough performance for Hot Rod Charlie.
It was, and he's also a horse who I think has shown prior to the Louisiana Derby, Dan, that he does not need that kind of a trip to run his best race. Yes, it was a career top for Hot Rod Charlie in that race on the lead, but his prior two races were both really good. I know that he didn't get by Medina Spirit in the Lewis. That was off a little bit of a layoff. I still thought he ran fine. And his Breeders' Cup was excellent in a race where they went fast in front of him. He sat it out. He made the first run ahead of Essential Quality, and he got beat less than a length.
The number 10 Midnight Bourbon won the Grade 3 Lecomte at the fairgrounds to kick off his road to the Kentucky Derby, and he had all the best of it that day. The speed scratched. He ended up the lone speed from the rail. He controlled it throughout. He ran well in the Risen Star. He ran well in the Louisiana Derby. He's an honest horse, but I wonder if he also had advantageous pace scenarios in both of those races. I think they're going to go a lot faster this time. I think this is a likable, consistent horse. I can see him in the exotics. Maybe a win slightly out of reach.
Yeah, I'm starting to look at him the same way, Dan. I really respect him, and I actually think he's a little underrated for a horse who just could get totally overlooked in this race. I really do want to try to find a way to use him somehow, because I just feel like he's handy enough to get any kind of a trip in this race. He's got a couple of speed figures from his last two starts that put him very close to the top contenders in here. I just think there's a lot to like about him, whether he turns out to be good enough or not.
I think you can make an argument that the 11 Dynamic One is sort of a poor man's known agenda from the same Pletcher barn. This is a horse that's improved with blinkers, and he's really improved with distance. I know you liked him last time out in the Wood Memorial. He kind of made the first run into a hot pace. He made the lead, and he was run down by his stablemate, the long shot Bourbonic. But this horse just continues to improve with every start. He'll have to improve again.
Yeah, he will. I won't be surprised if he's able to do it, Dan. I still think this horse could turn out to be pretty good. You know, it's hard for me to want to go back to him now after he got run down in that last race. I do think he ran the best race in the Wood, you know, keeping close, and after a solid pace. He was wide every step of the way, made the lead, and it took Bourbonic with a perfect closer's trip to get him. I still don't love that he got run down by that horse, but he ran well last time, and I think he could take another step forward.
Flying under the radar for Mark Casse and Julien Leparoux at the number 12, Helium, a perfect 3 for 3 in his career. He won his first two starts sprinting on the synthetic at Woodbine. Then he won the Tampa Bay Derby. The race will show you at a big price. And he carried a lot of ground in this race, Mike. He made an early wide move. You see Hidden Stash, who basically followed his cover on the turn. It looks like Hidden Stash has all the momentum. Let's give Helium some credit. Not only did he make that wide move on the backstretch, he digs in and denies Hidden Stash.
Yeah, he fought gamely here. His first start as a 3-year-old, first start off the layoff, first time on dirt, first time around 2 turns. He had a lot working against him. He still won. I got to believe he's going to be the first horse to enter the Kentucky Derby undefeated, Dan, and be 50-1 on the morning line. But that's the case for him. I don't think his connections did him any favors by foregoing another prep race after the Tampa Bay Derby. It didn't give him any chance to really improve and get more experience, and it feels like he's badly in need of those things.
Right next door is Hidden Stash. We saw him just come up short behind Helium in the Tampa Bay Derby. It was sort of a similar situation in his prior race, the Sam F. Davis. A lot of momentum turning into the stretch, flattened out just a bit, maybe up against it from a pace standpoint in the Bluegrass last time out behind Essential Quality. Personally, I like him at slightly shorter distances.
Yeah, he's just hard to make a real convincing case for in here, Dan. He ran fine 2 and 3 starts back in what were, it feels like, some of the weaker Derby preps. They stepped him up last time to face a better field. He was nowhere.
Here's the 2-year-old champion, Essential Quality, capping off a 5-race win streak in the Grade 2 Bluegrass. Essential Quality beating 3 of these common rivals, and his tactical speed is his greatest asset. Let's watch the Bluegrass. Highly motivated, was able to get to the lead. Essential Quality perched just off of him. They throw it down for the last quarter of a mile. Essential Quality forges on by at the end. While he hasn't run that big buyer like Rock Your World did, a 100 in the Santa Anita Derby, he keeps slowly improving. And again, he has that tactical gear to work out a trip.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you like best about him. Not only is he obviously really classy, again, as a multiple Grade 1 winner already, but you can just do whatever you need to do with him to make sure he gets the right trip. In the Breeders' Cup, it was to sit out off of a fast pace and make one run. And that Bluegrass right there, they walked on the early lead. He kept right up with it, and he gunned down a really good horse to win at the end. I just don't love the idea of taking 2-1 on a horse who I do think has to improve to win the Kentucky Derby, but I won't be surprised if he does it.
Let's watch the Santa Anita Derby, because the number 15, Rock Your World, exploded onto the national scene with this performance. Gate to wire, fastest race of the crop, 100 buyer speed figure. Rock Your World, very green from his lead changes. You'll see him pop back to his left lead late, but there's no denying this horse's talent. He's good on turf, he's good on dirt, and I think Joel Rosario is going to try to make every pole a winning one.
Yeah, they probably will. I mean, he certainly is talented. He's run well in all 3 of his starts. I just can't shake, this idea, Dan, that he just had. I know he ran a fast race in that Santa Anita Derby. He had all the best of it in there. He was part of a group of horses who felt like they were heading for the lead early in there. Nobody else went. So this horse just sort of wound up all alone on the lead in that race, and then he sprinted on home. I thought he ran well. I just wonder, even if he makes the lead in here, is he going to be able to get complete control of this pace early? I'd be surprised if he could. And if he can't get complete control, do you want a short price on him?
Beautiful pedigree on the number 16, King Fury, the winner of the Lexington Stakes at Keeneland in his one and only start this year. Let's watch the Lexington right now. It was over a sloppy track. It was a fast pace, but King Fury kind of made an early move into this pace, takes over the lead, and he wins comfortably. He's obviously stepping up in class for this race, Mike, but he has the right running style, and he has foundation. Even though the Lexington was only his first start of the year, he now has 6 route races under his belt, and I think he ran some underrated efforts last year at 2 while getting beaten.
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth there. Those are all the things that I think are interesting about him. I mean, obviously, he really improved in his 3-year-old debut with a perfect setup and on a wet track on things that I guess could give you cause for pause. I thought he ran really big in the Lexington. And when you take apart his 2-year-old form, I think it's a lot better than it may appear at first glance. First of all, he had 5 races, which is a good thing, especially in this day and age. And the 2 times, the 2 grade 1s where he was, double-digit lengths behind Essential Quality, personally, I think he had big excuses both times. The Breeders' Futurity hung out to dry every step of the way in there in a really wide trip. You go back and watch the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with the fast pace in front of him. He was moving up the inside in that race around the second turn. He ran right up on horses. He got stopped. The race got away from him at that point. I don't think he ran as poorly as it looks.
The 17 is highly motivated. We saw highly motivated on the lead in the Bluegrass. He couldn't fend off Essential Quality. Now, he had things his own way that day, and he changed back to his left lead late, maybe suffering from a little bit of fatigue. Now he has to go more distance. I do think this horse is very talented, and I think reverting to stalking tactics could work for him. To me, it's all about the distance, but he's one of the more talented horses in this race.
I agree with that. I'm worried about how far he wants to go. I do think he's one of the best 3-year-olds in the country this year. We'll see if he handles another stretch out here in the Kentucky Derby. I get that they're going to take him off the pace this time, and that could really work for him. Obviously, when you watched him as a 2-year-old, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to sit and pass horses in the stretch. It's still not much of an excuse for his Bluegrass, Dan. There's no better trip in racing than in a 2-turn race to be absolutely walking on a slow pace, and he was walking on a slow pace. Wasn't good enough to get it done, and I don't like that he went to his wrong lead late.
Perhaps peaking at the right time is the 18 Super Stock for trainer Steve Asmussen, the upset winner of the Arkansas Derby. Let's watch that race now. Now, again, the Arkansas Derby is going to be perhaps best remembered. That Concert Tour, the big favorite, bombed. Let's give Super Stock some credit. He stays close to a legitimate pace, and once he angles to the outside, he comes and gets these horses. Is he peaking at the right time? He might be.
He might be, we'll see, Dan. He's a horse who, to me, is pretty hard to get behind just because it just felt like this is the day to have him right here. He sat a perfect trip in a race where the big favorite totally bombed, and he ran a 92 buyer speed figure. I mean, he has to take another step forward in here, and he's got to do it probably without the perfect situation he was in last time.
Soup and Sandwich is the number 19. We saw him earlier in the Florida Derby, finished second to Known Agenda. He carved out the pace that day for only his 3rd lifetime start. It showed he has true ability. He's going to be facing probably a faster pace scenario. Certainly the toughest test to date for Soup and Sandwich. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what he does in the summer and into the fall. I think this might be a little bit too much right now.
Yeah, that's how I look at him too, Dan. He actually ran pretty well in the Florida Derby, considering that was a pretty tough spot for him, and he was attending the pace all the way. He was still no match for Known Agenda. And unfortunately for Soup and Sandwich, this isn't even a tougher race than the Florida Derby was. I still think he's really good. I just don't like him in this race.
Breaking from the far outside post in this 20-horse field is Bourbonic, and it shouldn't bother him because the strategy is likely to be very similar to what we saw in the Wood Memorial. Take him back and make one run. Let's watch the Wood Memorial. Bourbonic got a very fast pace in this race, and he got a clever ride from Kendrick Carmouche, who's right now going to ease him to the outside and into the clear, and he comes with a strong finish. This horse has gotten good for Todd Pletcher ever since he got that confidence-building win and a $50,000 maiden claimer, and I guess he has a puncher's chance again if the pace is electric up front.
Yeah, that's what they're going to hope for, I guess. They'll probably ride him the same way they did in the Wood. Take him back, try and get him out into the clear to make one run through the stretch, and hope they come back to him.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Kentucky Derby 2021. I like that you're going with a big price in King Fury. You mentioned some of the trips he had in his races. I agree with you that Lexington was a really good performance off of the layoff. You're going to get the price. You're going to get the race shape. I just couldn't find that many knocks against essential quality, other than perhaps the biggest one. The price, if he's 2-1, you could argue that's way too short, but I just think he's way the horse to beat.
Yeah, it's really my only knock on him too, Dan. He's not the kind of horse who, to me, I want to take a short price on in a race like the Derby. I don't really see what his edge is. I do think he's really good. I can't bet him as the favorite. I want other horses, and I talked myself into King Fury. I do think he's better than he looks on paper.
16, 1, 8, 14 for Mike. 14, 15, 9, 17 for me. It's the Kentucky Derby, your DRF race of the day for Saturday. Best of luck and enjoy.